Don't you love my new doorbell? Nobody rings it. It's COVID-19. I live in Massachusetts. I'm 75. I'm never getting out of here, okay? This podcast channel used to be about my successful, no one more surprised than me, significant weight loss and weight maintenance. Now, in addition to weight maintenance, it's about my sanity maintenance. Between COVID-19 and my democracy imploding, there is no medication. So I've decided to interview other people and ask them questions about their lives because I cannot think about my life one more minute. And I find that talking to other people helps me. So I'm going to share it, and I think it's going to help you too. Today I'm going to introduce you to one of my faves, I have to admit it. Her name is Babz. And she's 27 years old and moved to Boston in 2020. She's an occupational therapist. And I titled this episode, Needed to, Meant to. The girl gives me hope. I think she will give you some hope too. Meet Babz. I wondered if you could describe for me what work was like for you before COVID, like an ordinary work day. What was it like?
So it's a lot. So I'm sure my mom has filled you in, but I just moved to Boston in February. So
of 2020.
Yes, of this year. So I just arrived here, and so I just started 2 new jobs, both outpatient clinics, working full-time, splitting the time between the 2 jobs.
And your job title is officially what?
I'm an occupational therapist, and I'm specializing in 2 things right now. Specializing in hand therapy, so upper extremity deficits or impairments, and then also practicing lymphedema,
Right.
which is the type of swelling that people encounter after a surgery or after cancer treatment. So those are my 2 specialties right now.
Wow.
Well, were.
Oh, okay. All right, keep going.
So I moved here in February, started the 2 jobs, and it was going fine, working pretty much Monday through Friday for these 2 jobs. And then around St. Patrick's Day, starting in March, we started getting wind about COVID-19. And so we had a staff meeting, and this was back in March. And in the staff meeting, it was the whole hospital, and they said at the staff meeting that we were planned to shut down the outpatient clinics and that we probably wouldn't open until June 6th. I remember the day. And I was like, June 6th? That is summer. that is 3 months from now. And so they had already I worked for 2 companies in Boston. One is Spalding Rehab, which is a pretty well-known rehab facility.
Yep.
In Boston, and then also Faulkner,
Yep.
which is part of Brigham Women's. They're both partners.
Yes.
And so they told us that we probably were going to be shutting down and big changes would happen. So we, so all of us were kind of like, oh my goodness, and especially me, because I just moved here. I just started getting settled in the first couple of weeks, and everything was changing. Just when I started to be like, okay, I got this.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I'm per diem at both jobs, which means that I have hours, but I'm not set at both jobs. So they offered me, they said either you could basically not have a job or work some hours, or you could be deployed and work at a different hospital. And so I just moved to Boston, my first real apartment by myself, and so I was like, well, I kind of need to pay for this by myself. So
I kind of need to pay for my apartment.
I think I need to eat.
Yeah.
So I decided to agree to be deployed to Spalding, Cambridge, which they converted to a COVID-19 recovery hospital.
The entire facility?
So it came in transition. So my first deployment job was a basically furniture mover. So
okay.
The first 2 weeks of this pandemic, me and about 20 other staff members cleared a wing of Cambridge Hospital so that we could make room. So basically we moved chairs, we threw things in dumpsters, things I never thought I was going to do.
Babz Moving Company.
Yeah. I was not much help, to be honest. I was kind of hiding in the corner for most of it. but I did some work I did. So then I did that for a couple weeks. And then once we cleared that, then so what happened was patients were diagnosed with the coronavirus. And first stages, they go to an acute hospital where they are first diagnosed and they're treated, and either they are on ventilators or they, depending on the severity of how they experience the virus.
Right.
So they go there first and recover to a certain degree, but before they can go home, they need to go through rehab and be able to walk by themselves and be able to engage in their daily activities again and relearn how to breathe, how to walk, how to brush their teeth, how to get dressed. And also, that's all the physical things, but also how to mentally recover from this traumatic event.
Yeah.
So then the Cambridge Hospital turned one floor into a COVID recovery unit. So that started to fill up with patients who were finally well enough to leave the hospital, and now we're coming out of comas and being able to reintegrate, but couldn't go home yet because they're still positive and they can't go home because they'd infect their families. Okay. So then now they transitioned to a rehab hospital where I was deployed to.
Let me ask you this, just for clarification. When did you start wearing masks to your work?
Right away, they started with the surgical mask. Okay. So the surgical mask is the kind of flimsy.
Yep, I know them. Bluish.
Yeah, not conforming.
Yep.
So we started basically across the board. Everyone was to wear those all the time. So this was in, I'd say, March.
March, okay.
And then even when I was part of the cleaning crew.
Right. Okay, you were masked then also. Okay.
Yeah. And then they opened up the unit for a couple floors to be COVID positive. And then on those floors, you wear full PPE, the protective equipment.
Yes.
So you wear the gown, the N95 mask, the goggles, the face shield. I wear a hair covering or a hair net, and then scrubs.
What every young girl loves to wear, those hair nets.
Yeah.
And particularly with your beautiful hair, too. Oh, my God.
I know. I spent probably the first couple of weeks being like, you can't tell, but I'm smiling under this mask.
Oh, absolutely. So had you ever worn that complete kit before?
No, the only thing I've ever worn was if somebody was on, say, C. diff or had any type of virus infection that could be transmitted, or certain contact precautions or certain other precautions we'd see in the hospital. We'd wear typically a gown, gloves, maybe a mask, but never an N95 mask. Okay. This was my first experience.
Is that uncomfortable to wear all day?
It is, and I feel so badly for the nurses and doctors who are in more of the acute setting that have to wear that all the time. They recommend you should only wear it for about 45 minutes and then take it off in between. But a lot of these nurses who are working, especially in
Intensive care. Yep.
Intensive care, they're constantly in the rooms and going back and forth, and they don't have a minute to take a break. And that's where you've probably seen the pictures of the nose breakdown and the cheek. But luckily, I would go see my patients for 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'd come out of the room, take off everything, document, and then go back in. So I'd have about a couple minutes to relieve my face.
Yeah.
So
wow. It really does look uncomfortable. And I had an N95 mask on once doing one of my art projects that gave off some fumes that I shouldn't have been breathing. I could not stand the mask. Really, I couldn't. So I had so much admiration for all of you just based on that alone.
I know. You just almost, it was kind of, you just had to, that was what was protecting you. And that was, even if it was painful, that's what was saving you, per se.
Let me ask you this. When you went to Boston, you weren't planning on treating COVID-19 patients.
No.
Clearly.
I was originally supposed to just specialize in hand therapy. So that's fractures, amputations, tendon injuries, whatever, and lymphedema. But now this hospital that I started at, that I've now been here for 2.5, almost 3 months, is patients of all sorts. So it's a mixed diagnosis. It's a lot of comorbidities of prior past injuries or diagnosis. So it's seeing everything from people my age, 27, to I had a patient a couple weeks ago who was 97 who was recovering. So it was wide range.
Was the 97-year-old recovering from COVID or something else?
Yes, they're all recovering from COVID.
So all of your patients now are COVID recovery patients?
Correct. And within the last week, we're seeing more admissions of patients who have not had COVID. So that was actually a good sign to see that it's not fully patients that are for COVID recovery. Now we're seeing a little bit of mix, which is a sign that it might hopefully be getting better.
Oh, I hope so. Take me through, if you can, your own personal sense of stepping up to this task, because it was fearful. I know, just from my point of view, not working in healthcare, being 75. But when I looked at healthcare workers, I went, every day they have to deal with this. And I wondered if you could share with me how you dealt with that aspect of it. And did it initially get to the point where you said, I'm not sure I want to do it, or did just intuitively you knew you wanted to?
I think I needed to. I think I was meant to. I'm 27. I'm single. I live alone. My roommate went home. He ditched me, but he went home. He went home to work from home. So I was living alone in my apartment. I have a good immune system for what I think. I am strong, and I think I at the time and still am, I thought, most equipped to handle this and to I'm not going home to seeing a little baby or to my parents, or if I were to get sick, I'd be hurting myself only. And I think that is, so I think I needed to. I think it was my purpose too.
Had you ever had a sense of purpose like this before in your life, or was this new?
I think the purpose, I think healing, I think has always been something I'd love to do.
Yeah.
And and through yoga and meditation too, and teaching that, I think it's been it helps me to help and see other people heal.
Yep.
So I knew if I stayed home and did not work, and my mom and dad, they wanted me to come home so badly. They didn't know.
I
but
know.
I think I would have gone crazy, because it's being productive and helping others is really how we get stronger and how we can live. So
wow, I'm really those are two powerful sentences. I needed to, I was meant to.
Yeah,
really.
It felt, and I remember talking to my mom, and I told her, I said, I think it's just everything. I do believe everything happens for a reason, as cliche as that is. But I think this gave me such a wide spectrum of even knowledge and education and skills that I would have never even thought about. I'm on a proning team for Faulkner. I never actually was in the ICU proning people, but I was on a team ready to. What
is a proning team?
Yeah. So honestly, I did not know this. So and I work in healthcare, and I have for almost 4 years. But so when patients are on a ventilator and are basically in a comatose state, in order for them to improve their respiratory rate, and in order for their lungs to expand and allow for them to breathe better, they need to be positioned on their stomach. So when a patient is stomach, the lobes of their lungs are able to, they're not compressed. So when you're on your back, your ribs and your back, all the weight is pressing down on the lobes of the lung. So when you're on your stomach, you're able to expand better and you're able to breathe better.
So you would be moving them? That was the team you were on to put
Correct.
them on their tummies?
So it's a team of, it can vary, but 3 to 6 people, and there's a certain technique where you prop pillows on the patient's body and then wrap them in 2 sheets or blankets, and you work as a team to manipulate and to proning means to put them on their stomach. Prone position. So you basically move them and then shift their body so they come from lying on their back to their stomachs.
All the while they're attached to the ventilator.
Yes, and so it's a very. So I practiced and I never got called to be on the team because I got deployed to the other hospital.
Yeah.
But this is something that I never even thought about, and so I'm now seeing all my patients who are COVID recovering patients. They all have proning injuries. So these patients, in order to save their life, they had to be in these certain positions, and often they're having brachial plexus injuries, which is just even nerve impairments or impingements, or just positionally their arms were in awkward positions, so now they're having a lot of sensation loss and and I'm seeing this huge population of injuries that I never even thought about, which is I'm seeing them in the initial stages, but I'm an outpatient therapist, so I'm now being able to track them and follow them through each stage, the continuum of care. And I told my coworkers who weren't deployed and my boss who runs the outpatient clinic, I said, this is going to be a huge population we're going to see, is all these patients with proning, like injury from
Babz. Wow.
Yeah.
It's almost like an additional skill that you've added to the hand therapy and the lymphedema.
Right. Or an awareness.
An awareness, because the team, were you deployed, that team, or did you just get the training and ready for the call?
Just the training and ready for the call.
Okay.
Because I was full-time on the Cambridge Spalding unit on the COVID team. But I did do one shift in the ER, which would not like to do again.
Oh.
That was stressful. And I wasn't even part of the real stress. I was checking people in,
Yes.
and that it takes some strength, definitely.
Yeah. Do you remember going home that night after the ER?
So it's funny because before all this happened, I went to go see a psychic.
Yeah.
And I do this kind of often. I just love, I love psychics and I love energy and I love all that kind of things. And
Right.
the psychic, she didn't tell me about coronavirus. I wish she did. But she did tell me, she was like, you need to change your energy and I need you to go home and start journaling. So this was back, and I have my journal in front of me because I'm so happy that she told me that, because I used to journal when I was young.
Yep.
Just got away from it.
Yep.
So I have kind of notes from each month and each night, really.
Good for you.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool to look back and see, but I remember just that night specifically. The first few weeks of being deployed, I worked basically 3 weeks straight, just covering shifts and helping, and because again, I worked for 3 hospitals, so I wanted to try and help in any way I can.
Were you going to 3 hospitals in this cycle, or just to the Cambridge one for the bulk of it?
To Faulkner, which is the part of Brigham and Women's Hospital,
right,
and their ER department and their outpatient, and then Cambridge, Spalding. So I went to those 2 mainly.
So that night that you came home after the ER,
yeah,
I imagine was a night you remember.
Yes, because I'm used to a certain type of stress.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing I've learned from all this is just I have so much. I always did have a lot of respect, but so much more respect for the doctors and nurses who work type of in the OR and the ER and in type of intensive, high stress situations.
Yeah.
And how they remain calm and because it's so unpredictable. And that night I was on for an 8-hour shift, and it was from I think 12 o'clock p.m. to 8 o'clock p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a couple hours where nobody came, and I was with one other girl, and we were like, let's like read something, or let's watch something, and we were just sitting together and go to turn it on, and all of a sudden it was like a wave, and person after person after person after person, and it was just chaotic. And then people will come in just very intoxicated, and then others with suspected COVID, and we were trying to have them put on a mask. Other people with like lacerations coming in. So it was just you really have to be on your toes and be prepared for everything, and just go back to being silent. And it was just like kind of would come in waves.
Wow.
Yeah.
And at any point, did you discover something about yourself that you really didn't know about yourself?
I think I learned just from all of the patients who went through this, especially in the COVID recovery unit. I spent weeks with these patients, and my first patient who at Cambridge, he was a priest, this sweet man, around in his 70s or so, retired priest, and he had just so much positivity about his recovery, and it kind of just, I think it reassured me that because I always preach in yoga and the yoga classes and to positive thoughts, and I always tell my patients positive thoughts and try to keep your energy up, and I think that it was almost really reassuring to, I think that's what I learned the most, is that like I am on the right track with trying to keep these thoughts and these positive mindsets going, because it really makes a difference in everyday life, but especially if you're someone going through what these people went through.
So in a way, it was an affirmation of your life's values as opposed to being in conflict with it or being thrown out of your universe. You really almost, if I'm understanding you correctly, felt you were exactly where you were supposed to be.
Yeah, I like the way you put that.
I do too. But you know why I put it that way? Because your thoughts led me there. Really. It's really quite something. I've got a little tear in my eye. I won't lie. Wow. All right. This is the first time I've cried in a podcast. All right. All right. But let me get off myself and back to you. At this point, did you get surprised by your friends or colleagues or family members, or was that something you had to deal with in addition to your job?
Yeah, it was sad. I'm making this very positive, but it's very sad. It's been a very lonely couple of months, to be honest.
Yep.
And my birthday is April 17th, and so that was kind of in the very beginning, kind of midst of it all. And my parents came to come visit me, and they stood. I live in one of the tall brownstones in Boston, and they stood at the bottom of the stairs and dropped off a bottle of wine and a cupcake, and we had to stay a good 10 feet apart and just kind of wave at each other.
Right.
So we're such a hugging family and such a loving family.
Absolutely.
And that's how I am with my friends too. And it's not being able to see them and be with them, and because of my fear and my anxiety of potentially affecting and exposing people I love. And that is still such a fear in my mind, that I could be a carrier of this and that I could not have any symptoms and
that's the scary part, isn't it? Yep.
Yeah, so I still haven't seen them. I've seen them from a distance, but I haven't stayed over in Rhode Island. I've mainly been here.
Right.
So, and my friends, most of them are working from home because they can, and so it's been kind of hard too, because I want to see them, but I again don't want to. I don't think it's worth it.
Yes.
For these next couple months, and if we can continue virtually seeing each other, and I think it's the sadness of me right now missing them it wouldn't compare to the sadness if I lost them or affected them.
Yes.
So I have to weigh.
Wow.
What's right? What's the right thing to do right now?
Wow, 27 years old, and you think this way at 27. Honest to God, really, I have people my age that aren't making sense like this. How do you deal with people who are not on this page of we're still in this?
Many people aren't.
I know.
I think just listening to them and hearing. I think a lot of it's denial, or a lot of it's they just don't really understand maybe, or they need to be more educated, or I think people have different opinions for different reasons, and it's all okay, but Yeah, I think some people, like even some people at work too, I know that they're hanging out with their friends and
Really?
their social
Yeah.
their social group a little bit larger.
Yeah.
But I don't know that situation. I mean, they could also be working in the hospital, and
Right.
but I just know I can only really control what I'm gonna do or what I'm not gonna do.
Is there a question that you've not been asked in the past few months that you wish someone had?
I wish someone higher up or someone like one of my bosses just said, "What do you think you could do to help these people? Like, how can we help these people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and who are coming out of this but aren't really coming out of this? Like, many of them are physically walking out of the hospital, but mentally are still in a fog." Okay. And I'm easing into it with my supervisors and my bosses, but I want to create programs for these people and help them virtually or help them in person to know that post-intensive care syndrome is a real thing, and going through this event is traumatic. It's just as traumatic as a car accident, because with a car accident, you don't have time to mentally prepare yourself for an injury. So this is the same thing. These people are diagnosed. They don't know where they got it. They don't know how they got it. They were in a coma for 2 weeks. They come out of it. And it's just, that's what I tell my patients. I say, this is a traumatic event you went through.
Yeah.
Are your thoughts about this and your anxieties and your worries are all valid? Yeah. And it really is like you had a serious brain injury, or it's the same thing as a traumatic event. And so I just would like them to ask me, what are your thoughts? That's what I'd like them to ask me.
Well, let me ask you this. I'm just thinking as you answered this, that in a way, you found your future.
I think so. I think you're right.
I suspect you're going to find a way to have them ask you that question.
I think so too. I think it's our world has been turned upside down, and now even with Black Lives Matter movement, that is turning upside down for the good, and I think that has opportunity for growth too. I think both of these combined is a little burst of a reality check for our world.